All right, guys, here to talk about the 2017 Liberty football schedule. Paul, I'll present the first thought to you. Building schedules, you've done it for a long time. What do you enjoy about it?
Well, number one, it's a little bit stressful at times because when you only have 5 teams now in the Big South, you basically have to go out every year and find 5 or 6, sometimes 7 teams to build your schedule on. And you know, when I work closely with Mickey Guritti on the scheduling, it's something that I enjoy doing. But again, we look at this schedule, I look at it in 3 tiers. You have teams that, like this year coming up against a Baylor, that, you know, it's a difficult game to win. You know, they're a Big 12 team. And then you have your second tier of teams like Jacksonville State, Charleston Southern now, even a St. Francis who has done well. Those are teams that you're going to really have to fight, but you have a chance to win. And then the other tier of teams is that, you know, you're expected to win. So you try to balance that out, in my opinion, to the best of your ability to put your team in the best position to win.
First game out of the chute is going to be September 2nd at Baylor. First ever meeting between the Bears and the Flames. And they're going to have a new head coach, Matt Rhule, who comes in from Temple. And Baylor's 6-6 this year. They'll play in the Cactus Bowl against Boise State coming up in a couple of weeks. And you look at what Baylor presents, and it's kind of a neat meeting between 2 schools that kind of have the same faith background, Nick.
Yeah, same faith background and a lot of storylines into this one that will have very little to do with the game itself. Obviously, with Ian McCall coming to Liberty University, the former athletics director at Baylor, a lot of talking points about that game going into the week, and it'll be a fun trip heading down there to Waco. But you know, Bears have been a tough team throughout the years. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a team they put together out there on the field. As you mentioned, with a new head coach, a lot of uncertainty down there. They've had some issues with keeping some of their commits from some of their recruits down there. So we'll see what kind of a team that they field. But you know, 6-6 this year. You know, the Flames defense a year older. Maybe they can go in there and show well.
And a couple of years into their new stadium, so that's going to be fun to visit their place down there in Waco. Home opener is September 9th, Morehead State, 9th all-time meeting between the Eagles and the Flames. And you got to go back to 1991, last time these 2 teams matched up, Paul.
And I remember that trip specifically. I'll give you a little humor. We were stopping, going 3 buses chartering to Morehead State, and we're going to go to the stadium for a walkthrough. And sure enough, we get off the bus, and we don't have any footballs. So I had to run down. I had to run down to the sporting goods store to find 3 footballs, so we could have a walkthrough practice on that Friday. I'll never forget that story.
They weren't deflated, were they?
No, they weren't deflated.
Okay.
So we were in compliance. But that was a unique story. We get all lined up, get into the stadium, ready to have a practice. And hey, did you bring a ball? Did you bring a ball? No, we had no balls.
It's like one of those things about, you have the buddy system about your roommate. Hey, did you wake him up? He missed the bus.
Exactly.
You know,
Can you imagine the guy playing against sports when Paul comes running in there looking for football?
And there's 3 charter buses, and the guy saying, "Oh, I'm going to get a great order here. Hey, I just need 3 footballs."
Oh gosh, it's like you get at a restaurant with a charter bus, and all people are scurrying around trying to figure out, oh gosh, we got to clean these tables at a buffet place. Game 3, 16th Indiana State. Again, we go back a couple of years ago with that team. We played them up there in Terre Haute. They were 4-7 this past season. All right, the 23rd, second road game, Nick. I'll present this next question to you. At Jacksonville State, Gamecocks were 10-2. Only 2 losses were to LSU to begin the season and to Youngstown State. Probably a surprising loss to a lot of people in the playoffs, but a neat challenge for Liberty, and we saw them this past fall.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they were as good an FCS team as I've ever seen in person. They were the real deal. But they do lose Eli Jenkins this year. Rock Thomas, the really good running back, will be back though. So, you know, John Gross, the head coach there, has a very unique way of reloading, so to speak. He doesn't have to really go through a whole lot of turnover down there. Very good recruiter. It's going to be a very tough game going down there and playing at their place. We saw what they were able to come here to Williams Stadium and do. But the Flames, you know, again, defense a year older. Maybe they can go down there and do some things. You got to play well early in that game. Try to take the crowd out of it. Flames didn't play very well early against Jacksonville State here at Williams Stadium last year.
So Jacksonville State is game number 4. September 30th, back at home, third home game, St. Francis, a team that a lot of people last year didn't realize they went 7-5. They actually went to the playoffs, winning the NEC Conference, lost to Villanova. And I go back to my first game, 2010, which we played them at City Stadium. So it's going to be cool to kind of renew that series with them.
Yeah, much improved football team. I think they've got a lot of confidence. You know, they played Villanova in the first round and stayed close. Wasn't a blowout by any means like some of the teams we've seen in the FCS playoffs this year, but they played them extremely well. So they'll come in here with a lot of confidence. They travel well, they play well on the road, so I'm expecting a competitive football game with them.
The open date is going to hit Liberty on October the 7th, and then, Nick, Kennesaw State comes a-calling, first league game, always important to start league playoff on the right foot.
Yeah, and I think it's unique, too, that the Flames for a second straight year have the open date right before conference play starts and right before facing Kennesaw State. It's a good thing to get the Owls here at home, though, this year. 3 of your conference games were on the road. They're going to be a third-year program that's even better, you know, into that third year. So that's not going to be a gimme. That's going to be a tough, hard-fought game here at home. I'm sure the Flames are glad to have it here.
And then back-to-back road games in league play, October 21st at Monmouth, the 28th at Gardner-Webb. And I think, Paul, on November 4th, you have scheduled Duquesne. And I think that was one of the last games to get scheduled here. So give us an insight to that series and a team that was 8-3 last year.
Yeah, another NEC, Northeast Conference school that we scheduled late. That was a very difficult date to fill because of where it lined up in conference play for them and for us. And it just happened that we both had an open date. We were trying not to schedule a Division II school, which we could have to make it easier, but we try to make it as far as, you know, countable games. You have to schedule FCS games. So we were very fortunate, both teams lined up. And that'll be another competitive game, like you said, Alan, 8-3 in the NEC. You know, they're a good football team, recruit a lot of kids out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, so they'll be ready to play.
And again, Duquesne and St. Francis both on the schedule finished 5-1 in the NEC. St. Francis won the tiebreaker because they beat Duquesne in the regular season. So Duquesne 8-3 coming in on November the 4th. And then, Nick, we wrap up this season the 11th here at home against PC, then the 18th, which could go down as a big game at Charleston Southern.
Yeah, Charleston Southern, November the 18th. Flames haven't won down there since 2013, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, that'll be a big challenge. Presbyterian with a new head coach this year as well on November the 11th. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think also with having Duquesne, a non-conference game that late in the season, that's not something that we see very often. But you know, could be playing for all the marbles against Charleston Southern, but you got to get it done against Monmouth and Gardner-Webb first. Absolutely. The last two trips to those two schools did not go well for the Flames. And Gardner-Webb, even here last year at Williams Stadium, Paul, yeah, it took us to overtime.
You know, and like you said, Alan, those are two extremely important games because, you know, when we start with Kennesaw State, you basically, in essence, run the gauntlet, where now you have got to win. We've known this. You got to win those games in order if you're going to advance to the FCS playoffs. Hopefully, maybe if something happens in 17 where your body of work is good enough, well, maybe they'll take 2 teams in the Big South.
Another challenging slate on the docket for Liberty football starts off September 2nd at Baylor.